All right, everybody, welcome to PEP, which stands for Passion, Empowerment, and Perseverance. This TV show is dedicated to Salinger Coaching Solutions, talking to industry leaders about their experience in business, team building, and work, in ways that coaching can empower people. So I speak with business leaders and team leaders. And today I'm very happy to have a business leader with me, Cory Keane. Cory is a Chicago-based tech entrepreneur. He is currently the co-founder and CEO of IODEV, a web development services company. He previously co-founded the digital marketing company Prolific Media, a software consulting company called Keane Consulting, an e-commerce merchandising company called Thread Me Up. So a very eclectic mix of tech business world stuff. Cory is a graduate of DePaul University, as well as the Junto Institute for Entrepreneurial Leadership, a school that focuses on developing the leadership capabilities, emotional intelligence, and management skills of startup founders through apprenticeship and mentorship. Welcome to the program, Cory.
Thanks for having me, Graham. Appreciate it.
All right. Yeah. At Salinger Coaching Solutions, we work with clients on identifying their passions, clarifying and strengthening their purpose, and developing perseverance in challenging times so that business teams and business leaders can strive in the face of challenges. You have a diverse business background, as I just read from your bio. So, in terms of what your companies have done, what guides your passion for business in the tech world?
Yeah, so I think first and foremost, I've always been a super compassionate person. I love helping people. I love empowering people to accomplish things that they, may not think are possible for them. So super compassionate. I don't know if it's because my mom raised me that way or if it's just in my nature, probably a combination of both, but that's one thing. I think that especially at Thread Me Up, I'm probably going to bring Thread Me Up a few times during this interview because it was the company that I had the most employees that I was leading at that company. We had probably the most traffic driven to a website that I've run before at that company, like hundreds of thousands in a day sometimes. And then we empowered the users of our platform, the sellers, to well, a lot of them, had jobs beforehand and ultimately created their own business using our platform. So by selling custom merchandise in their passion or their interests. So it was that was a really cool experience for me, being the type of person who loves helping people. Obviously, technology is something that I'm good at, and as far back as I can remember, my dad was always into technology, and he introduced me to Windows 95. I think that was the first operating system that I used, and
Throwback.
Ever since then, I've loved computers and loved what you can do with computers, and especially the World Wide Web and how you can so easily share ideas and connect with people. So that definitely drives my passion. And then the last thing is that, quite frankly, I've seen there's a lot of people who do bad business out there.
Okay.
And the fact that I can, build my own business and gain clients and kind of protect them from potentially doing business with those types of people, I think really, keeps me going. So, yeah.
Awesome. And I know that a lot of their work came from sort of learning best practices through the Junto Institute. And so I was wondering if you can talk about your perspective as a business leader. What leadership skills do you think are most essential for inspiring teams to perform at their best? You also sort of alluded to the Thread Me Up also empowers a lot of people to start their own ventures and things like that. So yeah, what are some essential sort of ingredients to leaders inspiring teams and others that they do business with?
Yeah. I attended Junto Institute during the same time that I was working at Thread Me Up. So it definitely helped me at a time when I needed it the most. That was my first time actually leading people. So I definitely learned a lot through that program. And one of the biggest takeaways that I got from there is just one of the skills that leaders need are communication and listening skills.
Okay.
So, I mean, it's like in any relationship, right? Communication is key. If you don't communicate, problems are gonna bottle up inside and eventually probably turn into something much worse. So there's communication and listening, and really being a good listener. Like I still struggle with it today. Sometimes, like when someone is talking to me, I'll want to immediately talk and respond to one of the things that they said instead of listening to their full what they're trying to say. So always trying to work on that. I think that's super important. Which kind of leads into the next thing, which is empathy and respect. Um, in a world where people are increasingly being treated like robots and expected to be at peak productivity and performance, and not have emotions, I think that being able to put yourself in someone else's shoes is extremely important and can help you better lead those people and make them feel respected and equal. So there's that. And then a couple more. I think competence, like every leader needs to be competent in what they do. They need to show up and get the work done, show that they understand how the business works, or at least the departments that they lead, they should have an understanding of how all those moving parts work, and show that so that the people who are looking up to them know that they can always go to them when they need help.
Mhm.
Um, and then lastly, I think that transparency and authenticity are extremely important. I've seen it before, the lack of transparency and how that can cause people at a company to talk amongst themselves about the person who's not being transparent, and that's never good. You don't want people talking behind each other's backs and everything. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up this idea of empathy and relationship building. That's the sort of the bread and butter, the pedagogy that I use in Sound Your Coaching Solutions, is working with teams and emphasizing that really what gives people a competitive advantage is the human capital that is fostered through building sustainable relationships, which means you have to sort of get rid of the things that create dysfunction, like issues around trust and issues around competing internally over people's own ideas.
Yeah,
Um, yeah.
absolutely.
So how do you feel like those things, like listening and making sure that your employees are fully heard, which is a challenge? How do you feel like those things sort of give you a step up when you think about as a industry leader using those skills that you spoke about? How does that help you as the CEO in terms of building relationships that can also sustain company growth?
Well, I think it seems like the default for most businesses is to not have that. So
Okay.
the fact that you do lead in that way can make them feel that things are different. And at the end of the day, most people are spending more time working than they are doing anything else in life. Like if you add commute in and everything, it's more than 8 hours.
Hmm.
So it really just to provide a comfortable environment for those people while they're on the job, because that's where they spend most of their time, really can make all the difference. And their productivity in the end is what you want out of your employees.
Okay. Yeah, and I also think it builds confidence. It builds confidence in sort of the mission that people are putting out, or the vision that a company has. There's a lot. I think there's more buy-in when people feel listened to and they feel like they're part of the team and they're part of that. They're spending their 8 hours. They want to be spending those 8 hours not only being driven to productivity and doing what the CEO wants, but also feeling like they're a valued part of that. So I appreciate that.
Hmm. Yeah, I
I think
think.
that
Oh, sorry.
no, go ahead.
I think I mean, I've heard a lot from different people, different friends that have had, companies try and set up like a suggestion box or something, and people will put their ideas in, and that won't result in anything. So if it does result in something, then they know that they are being listened to and their feedback is valuable. So
Awesome. Um, Yeah, I mean, it creates kind of a risk if you come up with a scheme that says, "Hey, I'm going to listen to you." Then people give their feedback, and then that feedback isn't followed through. Then it actually makes it seem like people, if you just hadn't said, "I'm going to listen to you," and then ignore the suggestions in the first place, you might have been better off. So I think
mhm,
coming up with emotionally intelligent ways of making sure people are heard is essential. Which brings me to, which is why I have to coach people to do that, right? That's not inherent, right?
yeah.
In business leadership. Yeah, that kind of brings me to the third question, which is at Salinger Coaching Solutions, we focus on empowering success by empowering people. And for us, that means strengthening the relationship between people and business teams. So can you speak a little bit, and you've already sort of alluded to it, about the relationship between strong emotional intelligence and strong business teams?
Yeah. So I think first, I think it's technically possible to have a strong business team without strong emotional intelligence.
Mhm.
For example, you can have a sales team who brings in a bunch of sales, but there's no like culture. They don't talk to each other. They're just focused on themselves and making money. They might cut corners or something and not be doing things in a way that's, like ethical or moral. But I don't think that that's scalable. So that might be strong in the now, but when you try and build your company bigger and better, you're going to hit some bottleneck there. So I think that definitely strong emotional intelligence is required long term for to have a strong team. Um, yeah, and then it helps in having your team be adaptable to change. Specifically, like look at the times right now with the pandemic, social unrest, all these issues that are happening. It's really setting apart the businesses that are failing to scale and adapt to these changes from the ones that can. And I think that strong emotional intelligence is definitely one of the things that strong leaders are using to accomplish that.
Okay. You mentioned really important word for me at least is culture. How would you describe the culture at the companies that you've co-founded and that you've been in leadership roles? How would you define those cultures, and what are some ways that you've cultivated those cultures? What about those cultures are important for you?
Um, yeah, so ever since ThreadMeUp, my companies have been smaller. So ThreadMeUp really is the one that I think we had the most focus on culture because we had the most employees there.
Mhm.
Um, I mean, we tried to create a really diverse team, different people from all different walks of life and different experiences. We tried to, you know, do little things like have Friday be the day when people, we bring in beer and food and treat the team because they deserved it. And um, we did outings and stuff. We tried to just keep people happy and entertained while still being productive and getting work done and scaling our business. So
Okay.
hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, yeah. You mentioned they were in the middle of a pandemic, right? And having strong culture and having those emotional intelligence skills, as you also alluded to, can help you, and I guess general can help business leaders and business teams adapt, right? Um, Business teams that adapt better do better, right? They have a competitive advantage if they're able to adapt better. Um, so, given these challenging times, um, in the context that we're in, I guess what can moments of crisis teach leaders about how to stay committed to their work goals while still developing their teams to face challenges?
Well, I think that times like these, very unprecedented and hard times, can really bring out a person it can really show how a person reacts to these times and how they react to their emotions. And some people don't do a really good job with that. Understandably, it's hard to not react on emotions. It's kind of our default state as humans, and being in the animal kingdom. But
Mhm.
I think that me, for example, I use meditation. I think that really helps me handle those emotions in a way where I'm not immediately reacting, and it keeps me more focused on the underlying goals that I'm trying to hit. And I observe those emotions and I try and understand why they're coming up and how I can, handle them in a more logical way. But yeah, I think times like these really bring out, uh, you know, the true feelings that people have. And if you can just um, stay grateful for the good things in your life, even if it seems like this is the worst time in your life, then that can really also help you, not fall into this victim kind of like everything's total crap. How am I gonna get through this type of thoughts? even though that's like, it's understandable to have those thoughts right now.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
but yeah, I think that's, and then you also asked like, what are some solutions to times like that? And I think
Mhm.
that um, agile methodology, I think this, I don't know if you've heard of it. It's more common in like software development,
Sure.
but I think it helped me really stay cohesive with my team and adapt to changes. Even if like, back at ThreadMeUp, keep bringing up ThreadMeUp, we had these sellers who were constantly requesting new features, and it always seemed like things were changing, but we use agile methodology to kind of stay focused in 2-week, what are called sprints, and nothing would really change during those 2-week sprints. And that was one solution that we found was very helpful to adapt quickly.
Mhm.
Then I think like leadership training, obviously very helpful. Me going through that Junto program really helped me build my team up to, I think I was at like 12 developers under me at one point. Um, Hiring and firing skills. At the end of the day, not everyone's going to be a good match for you. And it's just a matter of, transparency and clearly setting the goals and the roles and responsibilities for this person. And then if they don't end up being a good match, like give them a chance, give them a few chances. But if the same thing keeps happening, that's when you have to part ways.
Or
But
find
yeah,
them a coach.
yeah, or
Just
that.
to plug myself a little bit.
Yep.
Awesome. Thank you. Um, yeah, one of the things that I appreciated that you said was sort of making sure that you were in the right place and that you sort of lead by example. You mentioned sort of doing the meditation and making sure that your mask is on before you take care of the rest of the team. And I think that's great that sort of leading as sort of modeling the behavior that you expect of your team, even in challenging times.
Mhm.
So I guess in general, outside of the context of pandemic, um, what are some general challenges that you have faced as a business leader over your career, and have you overcome those challenges, and what have you learned from those experiences?
Sure. So one huge thing that I had trouble with at ThreadMeUp was getting caught in the weeds. So by that I mean, so we had a team, 12 developers, and everyone's expected to, put in their time developing, getting things done, knocking out, tasks in our project management system. And for whatever reason, I felt um, like at the same standard and at the same expectations as my team. So I was spending so much time also developing, when that time I needed to stay focused on, architecting and scoping out the projects and talking to my developers, making sure that they had everything they needed. Um, and instead, I constantly, because I wanted to add more features to our platform and keep more customers happy, I jumped in and was doing the same things that they were doing, when I should have been stepping up and leading them more than
Mhm.
trying to be on the same level and getting the same amount of work done and the same type of work done. So definitely learned from that. And in my future endeavors after that, I made sure to only develop and be the one coding when I definitely have time for that. And my primary objective is to make sure that those under me and my development team have everything they need. So that's one thing. And then I think with ThreadMeUp as well, I was a founder, and I was also an executive member, I guess, like as CTO.
Mhm.
And I felt that I was kind of just acting as CTO most of the time. And by that, I mean, I didn't really concern myself with the other parts of the business, whether that be operations or sales or customer management, or finances. So that, um, you know, those types of things slipped away from my, like, it's not my core responsibilities to manage every single thing about a business, but being a founder, I believe that you need to be in the know of all that stuff and really have a an idea of every single moving part of the business and the status of everything. So falling into that executive role only and not also realizing my role as a founder was something I definitely learned from.
Okay, so sort of when you wear multiple hats, figuring out the best way to wear them.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, just I guess for context, why those, I mean, you've founded and worked with a number of companies. Were there certain things that drove you to sort of switch focus in terms of the companies that you've gone to and left?
Well, after ThreadMeUp, I kind of realized how lucrative internet marketing could be, just because we were empowering a bunch of online sellers and internet marketers. So that's what kind of led me to start a marketing company with actually one of my co-founders from ThreadMeUp.
Okay.
So I learned more about marketing and the psychology of marketing, especially online, which was interesting to me. But at the end of the day, I don't think that was really, like, I tried it, I learned a lot about it, and I wasn't super passionate about that. So
Okay.
I moved back to focusing strictly on technology. And I did that through a consulting company, just named after myself, Keane Consulting. And, I reestablished my love for technology and web development specifically. So I was doing that. And then some friends and my brother had an idea to build an application for food and beverage wholesalers and ERP systems. And I formed a team with them and had a clear goal as to what we wanted to build. And I led that development and, just again, reaffirming my love for web development. So I think it's pretty clear that that's what I want to focus on now. Hence
Okay.
why
So
I run an agency.
you built clarity for yourself by experiencing all these other things. Gotcha.
Yep. And then I really like that, like, any industry is kind of in need of technology, software, web development these days for the most part. So I like that I can also experience different industries through web development still.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because I think some of that involves taking some business and personal risk, which, when you take risk, you open yourself up to, I don't like the word failure, but I think a lot of there are people who are afraid of risk and they avoid risk, or they're afraid of failure, so they try to avoid it. Can you talk about why being risk averse is not good for business leaders?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, if you don't take chances, you're not going to really advance, in my opinion. I do lean towards risk aversion, if
Okay,
that's a word, but
I'll go with that.
I kind of I push myself to always step out of my comfort zone whenever I think it might be the right choice or might advance me in whatever goals I'm trying to accomplish. So I think it could be a good and a bad thing. I think, especially for business leaders and founders of companies, I think taking risk is a good thing, and failing is not always a bad thing. I mean, you can learn a lot from failing. I think what's bad is to fail in the same way over and over again. So if you're failing in new ways, you're learning new things. And the only way you can really fail is if you take risks.
Okay, great. Yeah, so we've talked, Cory, about a lot of things, right? We've talked about taking risks. We talked about the role of emotional intelligence. We talked about the context that we're in. I know that one of the things that you studied when you were at the Junto Institute was communication and conflict. So sort of self-made or culturally made crises that often exist within a company. So can you talk about the importance of strong communication skills and conflict resolution skills in terms of business development and management, which is a personal interest to me because my master's is in conflict resolution. Continuing to plug myself, as is the point of the show. Anyway,
Yeah, man.
back to you.
Yeah, so I think we already talked about communication and how important that is, and I think communication is really the only way that you can get through conflict. I mean, we see what happens when you don't communicate. A conflict can explode into something that could completely destroy a company and a team. So um, being able to identify conflicts or points of conflict and then address them properly and in a way that's emotionally intelligent and in a way where you can see the different sides of what went wrong, what people were thinking, why they were thinking that way, is the only appropriate way to approach it. Um, yeah.
Okay. Um, you've also used the word empowerment a few times in this conversation. Um, the way that I look at empowerment, just sort of recap, is that I look at um, helping to empower people's passion, helping to empower their ability to persevere in challenging times, and also helping them find their purpose. And you've also discussed, moving from company to company and establishing and gaining clarity on your purpose. So those are sort of the three P's and the three things that I focus on when I work with clients at an individual and team level. What would you say are the ingredients or the elements of empowerment, both for yourself and for both yourself, your business teams, and the clients that your teams also serve?
I think that if you can understand your team and the people that you work with, and on a deeper level, more than just them being someone who has roles and responsibilities at the business, then you can kind of see what their passions are too and what their goals are. And
Mhm.
that's the only way, in my opinion, that you can empower people, is to understand what they want to do, what they want to achieve. Sure, this is what they're doing now, but what is their goal in the end, or what's the next thing that they want? Like, how do they want to level up next? And then again, that goes back to communication and empathy. So everything seems to be interrelated.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Um, so based on that, how would you define success in terms of sort of in the business world? And how, I mean, I know you went through the Junto Institutes, you had a significant amount of mentorship and apprenticeship. So how do you think coaching or having somebody to support you from the outside in a consulting world can help empower growth and success?
Yeah, so I think that being from the outside looking in is a very unique position to be in. Uh, at any business, everyone's internal. All the employees are internal, and it's very easy to get clouded by everything that's going on in the business and not be able to think super clearly or objectively. So coming in as someone from the outside and being completely unbiased and objectively looking at what's going on, I think that's that position. It's much easier to identify issues. Uh, I know in my experience for sure that being an outsider and like my consulting company,
Mhm.
it was very like certain things seemed pretty obvious to me that didn't seem obvious or didn't come to the mind of other people because of that unique position. So I think it's definitely helpful, and especially with businesses who seem to be having trouble scaling and getting to that next level, that's probably a good person to call, someone like you.
Okay. When you think of scaling and getting to the next level, what are some challenges and you probably, yeah, what are some challenges that businesses often face in terms of scaling and getting to peak performance that they might need somebody else to work with them with?
So maybe if a business seems to be experiencing the same issues over and over again, and they don't really know why or how to fix them. Um, I know with a business that I worked with before, they had a huge number of order returns and order issues, and they just kind of accepted that as being part of the business.
Hmm.
When I came in and I was able to help them identify, like, here's probably why the majority of these issues are happening. There's probably a process that we should build in between here to fix that. And I mean, we were able to, and we significantly reduced those order returns. So
Well, there we go. Awesome. Yeah, Corey, is there any topics I didn't touch on, or anything that I didn't bring up in this conversation that you want to bring out, sort of just based on having gone through it?
Uh, Nothing really comes to mind. I think we touched on most of the things, all the things. So
All right.
yeah, man.
Sounds good. I will just end by saying Salinger Coaching Solutions in no way endorses the Chicago White Sox. So with that,
Brilliant way to end it.
Corey apparently does, but no, I'm just giving you a hard time. We both did terribly in the postseason, so
It was fun though.
it was fun. Bears are still watchable.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Go Bears. There's
Go
something we
Bears.
could agree on, right?
Let's end on Go Bears.
All right, man. Thank you, Graham. Appreciate
Thank
it,
you.
man.
Yep.
See ya.